So 75% of small business owners say inflation is worsening. 86% of small business owners say they have increased prices. Previously it was 72%. 82% of small business owners report lower business earnings. So moving on to our next section, hiring and unemployment. This is kind of a mixed bag what's going on here, and I believe that the Great Resignation is going to work itself out over the next 3 to 6 months. Unemployment claims are rising. But however, there's still 10 million job openings. And what's happening is we now know Americans don't want to work on farms and in the fields. Well, they now don't want to work in restaurants or anywhere else they get their hands dirty. So there's still a large number. It'll be interesting to see how this declines as the economic situation worsens. Walmart is a bellwether. Almost every day on the news, some large corporation is laying off a significant percentage of employees. Walmart is laying off somewhere between 10 and 15% of their corporate staff, and probably not touching the stores because they're having a hard time generating people in the stores. But there's many other businesses that are retrenching. So we're seeing an effect that the recession is developing and it's taking a grip on the economy. And I believe the number two problem, which is finding qualified employees, is not going to be as large a problem as the recession unfolds. Because I believe people will be burning off their stimulus money. There won't be any more eviction moratoriums, and people are going to need jobs, and they may go back to being servers or cleaners or the other types of jobs that these 10 million jobs primarily are. Our next section is the Inflation Reduction Act. This is probably a huge misnomer because all of the things that the Biden administration and the Democrats are proposing are probably going to have massive increases in inflation. It's really a tax act where may be the largest increase in taxes ever in the United States. So the big one that affects large businesses with $1 billion of book profits is a 15% minimum tax. You've probably seen this all over the news. It's going to, it's probably going to accelerate companies leaving the United States. And if you ever wanted to cement China's position as a production of the company of the world, this will do it. So basically, they're not saying anybody's cheated on their taxes or anything. They just say they want the money. And the problem that they're not realizing is the reason these large corporations, the president keeps harping about 40 large companies that had, I don't know, some number like 100 billion in profits and paid no taxes. Well, the reason they didn't pay any taxes is because they bought equipment and were able to 100% write it off under 179 depreciation. See one of my previous posts called Cut Your Taxes. They're also getting employee retention credits. The companies are getting these credits. Yes, they are having production elsewhere in the world, and they're doing what's called transfer pricing and reducing their exposure to U.S. taxes. But if they're going to have to pay 15% on book taxes, it means they're not going to buy as much equipment. They're not going to retain as many employees. They're not going to do all the things they've been given an incentive to do. And how do you think that's going to affect the economy when people start buying less industrial equipment, less farm equipment, less production equipment? It's going to be a problem. The economy is going to go down, and taxes are going to go up. This one affects all of us. The Clinton years were really rough for tax enforcement. The IRS became really nasty. This will be interesting to see if they can execute this because ever since the Lois Lerner and the nonprofit deal where she wasn't allowing any conservative nonprofits, and then she resigned, and of course 250 servers at the IRS disappeared and all this kind of thing. The IRS has been in a down spiral because Republicans have been pounding on them. Well, this bill gives $80 billion over 10 years for hiring and staffing strictly for enforcement. So they're going to come after you, and if there's anything with your taxes, and you know a large number of taxes can be large issue with taxes is that it can be an opinion on the position that you're taking. Well, the current IRS budget is 12 to 13 billion a year. So they're going to devote another 8 billion a year, 75% of the current budget for enforcement. They'll have to get a lot of people, but I don't think there could be anything worse than young, unexperienced IRS agents coming after you to increase how much money they take out of your pocket. This one's kind of scary, and we'll get to how they're going to get this through. One thing it did do for small businesses was increase the R&D tax credit to 250,000 per year. I've been doing this on for 7 or 8 years, and I got to tell you, it's a problem with my outside CPA firm. I got to calm them down because they know that the enforcement on this is really difficult, and that the IRS has units around the country that do nothing but review this and take it away from you with penalties and interest. So this Inflation Reduction Act really is just a very large tax increase act that's probably going to squeeze people more. And there's one thing sitting out there. It's not part of the Inflation Reduction Act, but the Build Back Better Act, which is a $3 billion of more government spending, which Congress passed, but the Senate hasn't. And it's possible for both the Inflation Reduction Act and the Build Back Better to come through what they call budget reconciliation, where they only need the 51 votes, with the vice president being the 51st vote. That Build Back Better proposes a 3.8% surtax on LLC and sub SS. So, in addition to this greater enforcement, in addition to larger companies having to redo how they operate, what they buy, how they deduct, and how they record book income, we're just going to take 3.8% of you off the top. So, good luck with that. So, it's a tough environment. Taxes are going to be very difficult. And I think if they're able to get this through, which they just might because they don't need 60 votes, they only need the 51, this could be a really rough time for a couple of years. So I wish everybody well. And I'm bringing this to you to be cognizant of it so that you know how to protect yourself for the future.